Yo, what's up, people? Hold, let me turn my mic up a little bit. Check. Let's turn it up a little bit. Let's turn it up. Check. Yeah, I think that's good. Check. Here, let me expand this so I can make sure, see how much off I am. Okay, I think we good. What's up, everybody? It's your boy MM2K. I'm back. This is members first video. Okay. What we're going to do here is, I have some things I want to talk about in regards to this whole thing with Xbox, but I wanted, take the time to explain, kind of where I've been at first, and then talk about our raffle that we're about to have. So, this upcoming Tuesday, which I'm not sure when you guys are going to hear this, you might hear this on Monday. So if you're not a member, you're going to hear this on Monday. If you're a member, you're hearing this over the weekend. We have a raffle. We're going to give away Death Stranding 2, courtesy of our good friend Geek to Sneak. We're going to do the raffle on Tuesday, and then we'll coordinate with him to get you the code for Death Stranding 2. Shout out to Geek to Sneak, big time follower and supporter of the platform. Check him out on all of his streaming platforms and stuff like that too. He does things every now and again. He does most of his stuff through Discord though, but that's the homie. So check out Geek to Sneak on Twitter and so forth. And thank you very much. And whoever wins, I hope that they thank Geek for the offer. All right, now where I've been working. I've had to go to offsite recovery disaster recovery. Jeez Louise, I got that backwards. And the commute is cumbersome and it's hard. And it makes it challenging for me to do content because like on most of the days throughout the week, I have to go directly to my place of business, and by the time I get done, I'm tired. I ain't gonna front. I'm wiped. But because of my new schedule, I got to go to bed early anyway. You know what I mean? Because I'm not working from home anymore. When I was working from home, it don't matter. I could just operate on a couple hours of sleep, go about my business. But then now I got to commute, and then coming home from that commute is horrific. So just wanted to put that out there. For the good people. That is what's going on. That is why I've been kind of lackadaisical on the content. Okay, but we're working on something. We're gonna be back in full form, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Okay, now that we've gotten all those preliminaries out of the way, let's talk about it. Something very interesting happened over the course of last week, though, even though I wasn't creating a lot of content. I got to talk to a good friend of mine. Now, I'm not going to name who they are. Some of you may guess this because guess who this person is. The only reason why I'm not going to tell you who the person is because I don't know if they want everybody to know about this conversation, even though they've said something similar publicly somewhere else. I'm just not the type of person. If I have an offline conversation with you, I'm not going to sit there and tell you the offline conversation unless you're D-batch. If you're D-batch, then I don't give a damn. You don't deserve those type of discretions. But opposite of D-batch, if I have an offline conversation with you, that is our conversation if it's in detail. If it's something that me and Cold Blood or Bloviating are going back and forth over, that's different. Because I know what Cold Blood gives a damn and what y'all hear or don't. And basically, Cold Blood don't give a damn. What you get in public is what you get behind the scenes. There is no fuddy-duddy secret shit when it comes to Cold Blood. All right. So because I'm saying that, hopefully you guys will understand that is why I'm not telling you who this is, even though it might not be the biggest thing they might want to tell you, but because I'm on the opposite side of their opinion, I don't want to name names and they're not here to defend themselves just in case I got something wrong from our conversation. when you hear what I say that we talked about, you might know who this is because they told me I had this conversation on someone else's channel. But if you don't, and they happen to come on and we debate it here on the channel, whatever, that would be fantastic too. I think it'd be a great conversation. Anywho, I had a conversation with somebody who's an Xbox supporter and a fan of the platform, right? And this person believes that after the Xbox announcement, which let's cover that super quick because we haven't talked about it yet on this channel. The Xbox announcement that they are dropping quote unquote new hardware / first party hardware / console. So they are saying that, hey, we as Xbox, we are going to make a device. We're making hardware and they are calling it a console. Now I have my discretions about that. And I think there's a caveat to that, but I'll get into that shortly. But they are saying we are developing hardware. Other people are developing hardware too that we are going to call an Xbox. But we'll get into that later. Because shout out to Brad Sams. Brad Sams, who again, even if you're not a huge Xbox fan, Brad Sams and maybe Arthur Giles are like the only two pro Xbox sources I trust out here. A lot of y'all be making up shit just to make up shit and create content. I don't trust none of y'all. The only ones that I trust that are pro Xbox sources are, again, first and foremost, Brad Sams. Secondly, Arthur Giles of Polygon, but I think he sold Polygon. He's co-creator of Polygon, and he's part of the Rebel FM podcast, one of my favorite podcasts out there. Even though I don't agree with the single opinion that they have, it's not about the opinion, it's about the facts and the stuff that they tell you that's going on in the industry and what's going to lead to what factually that I'm enamored with when it comes to that podcast. So shout out to Arthur Giles and the people on that podcast, and shout out to him in general. Even though opinion wise or what our gaming tastes are totally different, because he's full-throated support is behind Xbox. I am different. You know what I'm saying? But again, because I'm so much upon being engrossed with facts, I can appreciate content like that. So those are two sources. I don't trust nobody else. I ain't got to name any names. I just don't trust you when it comes to the Xbox information you give, because a lot of you, instead of you giving me facts, you give me hopes and wishes that you're trying to push and brute force as facts. That's not what I want. I don't give a damn what your wet dreams are about. I don't care what you hope. You twinkle your nose and tap your toes in hopes that it happens. I want to know what's coming down the pike, and I want to know that whatever you're giving me, you've done your due diligence on, versus just being told something and be like, "Ooh, I wish that happens. Let me tell everybody else." That's not doing me a service, because I'm not a fanboy. I am a consumer of gaming content. I can become a fan of something if the gaming content is great, but ultimately the same thing that I'm a fan of on Monday, I can loathe them on Tuesday if they don't deliver for me. Okay, so I'm not a fanboy. I'm a gaming consumer. So I don't care about you window dressing your hopes and dreams that someone just happened to tell you. I need to know what is going to actually happen. Okay, Brad Sams, Arthur Giles, that's it. I don't trust nobody else related to Xbox, or as far as Xbox news is concerned. Definitely nobody at Xbox. Anyway, that being said, shout out to Brad Sams for breaking this down for me, and I'm going to cascade it to a lot of you guys that haven't listened to Brad Sams. I urge you to do it. Go check out his first video from 4 days prior to I think he dropped that video on the 17th of June. And then there's another video that he dropped on the 19th of June. Check both of those out. Very informative. Okay, but we'll get to that. What is an Xbox part of it? Back to the conversation. So again, Xbox is going to do new hardware. They're going to develop it themselves, of course, with manufacturing partners. But this is not some crazy OEM thing where they're going to license it to somebody else and somebody else is going to make it for them. According to the information that Brad Sams have, they are going to make it. On top of that, though, Brad Sams is saying that other options will be made by other manufacturers. There will be other strictly OEM, or maybe I'm getting the terminology mixed up, but there will be other manufacturers like an Asus or a Dell that will have a specific components that Xbox is going to certify Xbox components, right? To you know, I'll get into that a little bit, but there are certain people that are going to make these Xbox quote unquote certified devices that are not Xbox. But for the sake of this discussion, the focal point is the unit that Xbox is making themselves. So this person told me that, and it's their belief that Xbox wants to take Windows 11 in the version that's built specifically for gaming, and their goal is to simply, you know, have Windows gaming be the most utilized OS in the world, right, on any device that they can get it on. And the person expressed that they feel like that Xbox's end game is getting it on Nintendo and PlayStation. Now, they've expressed this is their theory, but I've hinted to this in my conversation with them, but I'm doing so more so now because I was really kind of like catching up with them and we were talking about other things, but I did let it be known that I didn't agree with that take, and after I've had to more to digest it, I think that theory is based upon, again, more hopes and wishes and dreams from Xbox faithful. Let me share a story with you, because I can relate. Several years ago, shout out to Next Gen 720, shout out to my homie Nethos. I remember Next Gen 720, Nethos and I got into an argument over, I think it was Xbox at E3 for 2018. To the drive up to the E3 2018, there was a lot of conversation about we heard it from Rand, we were hearing it from Jazz, we were hearing it from a lot of Xbox entities that were like, look, man, Xbox is going to have a killer showcase. They're going to knock the socks off of, you know, the Xbox faithful. And even though at the time I was really in a downward trend towards Xbox because I didn't like the direction they were going into and the things that they were doing, I was hopeful that was what was going to happen. So in lieu of that, what I did, and Nethos did with me, is we went back to Next Gen 720 and said, look, Z, you are out of your mind. Everybody is doubling down, and Microsoft is going to kill it. Come on, they got the war chest, This is we've been waiting long enough since the release of the Xbox One. They've had more than enough time to turn it around. There's a lot of rhetoric out here. They can't be talking out the side of their face for nothing. It's going to come to fruition this year because everybody's saying it. Next Gen is like, hold your horses, curb your enthusiasm. It's not happening. And we argued him to death. But what Next Gen knew that we didn't know, because he is the bot father, he is the one that made, you know, fighting for Xbox on YouTube and Twitter the thing. That's why we called him the bot father. What he knew that we didn't know is that a lot the same people that were telling him this, these are the same people that were telling him other things that did not come to fruition. Or the same people that were telling us this, or we were hearing this from, were the same people that were giving them pipe dreams for years. One in particular, with directly before they got serious recognition, they were sending them stuff all the time that did not come to fruition. So he's developed the sixth sense to understand what was BS and what was legitimate sourcing, right? And then Next Gen had his own contacts with his own quote unquote with developers and all types of people from all types of circles. He's not big on, fraternizing for the sake of being a fanboy with execs or whomever. All he cares about, like myself, is the information. So as long as it's a valid source and it's valid information, he don't care where he gets it from, as long as it's valid. He doesn't fancy over, I want to meet Phil Spencer, or this is Phil Spencer, he's so special. No. He knows that Phil Spencer likes the bullshit. He don't care to talk to Phil Spencer. He may throw shots at him on Twitter for the entertainment purposes, but if you were to say, Z, you have an opportunity to sit with Phil Spencer, and talk to him and pick his brain, or here goes a dev that we know is going to give you the absolute truth, who would you rather sit in front of? He's going to pick the dev 1,000,000 times out of 1,000,000, because he doesn't get all froth-mouthed and creamy knuckled over someone that's well recognized in the public. He wants the facts. So because we didn't have that ability to do that, Next Gen ended up being right, and then I went and ran off somewhere, wrote him a sick letter. I couldn't show up to the podcast for a week, and left Mythos to his own devices to take all the thrashing for us being wrong. Right. Fast forward to 2025, I'm having a conversation with an individual, and they're expressing to me this crazy end game of Microsoft's OS, powering PlayStation and Nintendo. And it led me to think about this. Like, number one, wow, the state of where the Xbox fan, and this is not me being facetious to the people, but what has happened psychologically is Xbox they've invested more in creating parasocial and evangelist marketing mindsets with its consumers, that the consumers don't know how to say Microsoft at this point has failed, and until they prove otherwise, they will continue to fail. And the reason why I say that, and people may bristle at that, but here's my thing. There's no other product where the company has failed to compete effectively, and they've tried different things, that they've all of a sudden became successful out of nowhere, and the consumer base kept making excuses for them. Like, what you'll see in parasocial relationships is a successful company make a bonehead move, and the bonehead move gets excused for, but never do you see a company completely fail. For over a decade, completely fail. And that consumer base still makes up hypotheses about how they'll succeed. Normally what happens is that consumer base just leaves. And I think this is because we've become, and again, I don't think a lot of us realize we've become so emotionally invested in Xbox actually finding a successful lane so we don't look like fools and idiots. We've become so emotionally invested in that we can't separate the forest from the trees and just say Xbox has failed. And until they come up with, until we see successful results, they're a failure. That's it. It's a failure. The only thing that Xbox was successful at And again, you're talking to someone who, I feel like the 360 generation was like, is up the top 2 generations of gaming of all time. Only second to the Genesis, Super Nintendo generation. I feel like that the Xbox 360 generation, next to that, very close to that, if not on the same tier, is like the greatest generation. And the Xbox 360 is my second favorite console of all time, next to the Sega Genesis. The only thing that Xbox has succeeded in is stopping PlayStation at this moment from being the computerized device that they wanted the PlayStation 3 to be. So taking over your living room. That's the only thing that they were successful at. And you know what I mean? But in their success in stopping that and making PlayStation just focus on games again, they've lost their ability to take over the living room through gaming, and they've lost the ability to take over the living room as far as computerized devices are concerned, because you have the Fire Stick and, you know, Chromebooks and a whole bunch of other shit that's taken over the living room. Android has pretty much taken over the living room. And when it comes to your mobile devices that you take with you everywhere, Android and Apple have taken over, and Microsoft has been knocked to the wayside. Now, where Microsoft has been successful at is, you know, mainly business applications with their, LinkedIn, business applications, and being an AI. But it's in their DNA to be a retail consumer to the average consumer, not just businesses. It's in their DNA. And don't get me wrong, Windows has seen success, but they've even sacrificed selling you Windows at a high premium cost to get you into the ecosystem that they can turn the switch of something on and capitalize off of you as well. And they want gaming to kind of be that focal point that will create a scenario where Windows 11 will be everywhere and will outshine Android and Apple. And I don't know if that will happen, particularly through gaming. So yeah, when it comes to gaming, Xbox has failed. And they have a war chest to keep trying something, but before they get taken out of the failure column, they have to see some type of success. So I felt like this was a good opportunity for me to go over the success that, even if you are a huge fan, you should be asking about whatever this new thing that Microsoft is going to try. This is what you need to ask before you start coming up with these theories about them being successful. Because under this regime, we have 12 years of failure. 12 years of failure. And for nothing else, nothing else that we even like, do we make excuses for 12 years of failure? Think about that. I want you to think of another product that has failed for 12 years that you guys are like, yeah, man, but they're going to kill it with this or they're going to kill it with that. No, you are, in worst case scenario, if you like something that's failing, you just say, I hope they can stick around. I hope they can shake it out. They don't just make an announcement after having a track record of failing for 12 years and you say, oh, it's over. They're going to take over now. They've beat PlayStation. Like, even during our conversation, I was told that there's no need for a PlayStation anymore. That we don't need a play. And I want to take me out of the equation. I want to say the PlayStation consumer doesn't need a PlayStation anymore. So we're going to look at some things. Let's do that. All right. So here's a tweet that I put out because I've been trying to digest all this and figure this out, because I've been seeing it while I've been in the disaster recovery site, but I didn't quite understand what was going on until I had that conversation for one where I was still confused, not understanding what this approach was. But what really brought everything home to me was what Brad Sams had to say. But before we, you know what, I don't want to get out of turn here. So here's what Brad Sams had to say. Let's do this because I should probably be showing this. Okay. So Brad Sams said that if you want to understand, the best way to understand what an Xbox is, it's in the announcements made by Sarah Bond and what's her name? The head of AMD. Those are the best ways to help you understand. Is it Linda Sue? Here, let me look this up real quick. Let me see. Xbox AMD. I put this in here. Is it? I think it's Lisa Sue. Here, let me. I don't want to get her name all. I don't want to get her name jacked up. Okay, Lisa Sue. Yes, it is Lisa Sue. Okay, and I'll show you guys what I'm looking at right here. There we go. So you had the video from from Sarah Bond, then you had Lisa Sue follow up, and it was in the video where Lisa Sue did everything come to fruition. And Brad Sams helps us understand. So here's what's happening. There's a huge debate out there in the community about Xbox getting custom AMD chips created anymore. And I think the answer is yes and no. Like, this is different. And this is according to Brad Sams, and I trust Brad Sams. So I'll follow him down this lane. Are there going to be certain technologies that are picked out of like the Ryzen, chips or whatever, like custom chips, like how we've seen in consoles past? No. So there's not going to be the typical console custom chip. Here's what's going to happen. Microsoft is is getting into a partnership with AMD where they are going to take existing technologies, combine them, and create a chipset that will be necessary if you want to deliver the Xbox experience, or if you want to execute quote unquote the Xbox software going forward. What is the Xbox experience, Xbox software? Well, number one, let's address backwards compatibility. You have to be able to handle the backwards compatible setup, meaning that Xbox is going to present a path where your library from previous consoles will be available on this chipset, will be playable on this chipset when it's designed. And in order for you to have an Xbox unit, whether it's Xbox making it themselves or Asus or whomever in the future, I don't know if this Asus ROG will have this chipset, but any of these devices in the future, in order for you to give the full Xbox experience, you have to be able to cover backwards compatibility. And in order for you to cover backwards compatibility, you got to use this chipset. So is it custom in the atypical console sense? No. It's a combination of existing technologies that AMD has come up with in cohort with Xbox that first and foremost addresses backwards compatibility. Now, that sounds cool and all, and kudos to Xbox for preservation on that side. Here's the question, and Brad Sams brought it up as well. Is this going to include your entire library? My guess is probably not. And I think the thing that's going to make this even more challenging for a lot of gamers to accept is, I don't think if your game is on a disc, it's going to accept it. I don't think. I could be totally wrong. That would be a huge blow, because we see Xbox people, Xbox faithful all the time. And I was just going through my a lot of my documentation, because I'm no longer working from home. I was like, I got to grab this shit, take it to work, or scan it or whatever. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the documentation, work-related documentation that I had at home, I was going through boxes that I had secured in my office. And somehow in those boxes, I got, there was a particular box that had a lot of my Xbox games in them with the discs still. So, but there's people out there that have like bookcases full of Xbox games that, excuse me, I'm pretty sure they get a little nostalgic. They want to play like Borderlands 1, the 360 version, or maybe the Xbox One, whatever, and they just pop it into their current Series X or Series S and play it. Or if they have a digital copy, they can play. But I'm talking pretty much hardware, because I don't think that the digital version, if you have a digital version of that game, it's going to be a problem. I think physical is going to be an issue, meaning I don't think that these devices are going to support hard drives, and I don't think they're going to support discs. So what does that mean? Does that mean that these developers are now going to allow you to trade in your discs, or these publishers are going to allow you to trade in your discs for a digital code? Xbox talked about a trade-in program several years ago, that if you pay a nominal fee of $3, you can take your disc somewhere and get a digital code for that. Will that even be possible for a lot of these studios that no longer exist, right? You know what I'm saying? So my question is this going to include every single game in a library physical? And I think the answer is going to be no. And there's going to be some tough pills to swallow, like Kingdoms of Amalur, and other games. There might be issues. There might be issues if you have a disc. Now, Kingdoms of Amalur, I think they did give that away on Xbox, when it was Xbox Live, when they used to give out the free games. So that might not be so much of an issue. But there are games out there that, people may not be able to trade in or whatever for digital code. So yeah, that's the pros and possible cons with their backwards compatibility program. The thing number two that these chipsets have to do is they have to be able to, of course, play these Windows 11 versions of games. Okay. And that's where Xbox is basically going through. So these are modified Windows 11 / Windows PC versions of games, right? With modified components as well. So they have to be able to play your backwards compatibility games, play these Windows 11 compatible games, and last but certainly not, or play these Windows Store games, and I believe that would include Battle.net, right? And any other Microsoft owned store. And last but not least, I feel like that they would have, they have to be compatible with the new Xbox UI. I am so sorry. My phone is, here, let me do this. My phone is Let's turn this off. I had to switch phones. Another reason why I, kind of been light on the content is because my phone broke. Do not get the Motorola Razr 2024. The screen is defective. I just opened it up one day. I was on the elevator with some coworkers. I was just opening it up to go check the time, and the screen popped just from me opening it up. It's a crack. And people were like, oh my God, what happened? And then, that thing that happens when your screen cracks and it looks like black ink, it looks like the fog, this black ink or this black fog takes over your screen. So yeah, I got to send it back. I'm transferring it to an older Motorola phone, all my data and stuff like that. So that's all the beeps and stuff that you're hearing right now. Anyway, yeah, and so and it has to play the UI. So those are three things. It has to support the new and upcoming Xbox backwards compatibility software, whatever that's going to look like. It has to, of course, play the Windows 11 or Microsoft Store Battle.net games, whatever store it is. And then lastly, it has to be compatible with the Windows UI. That's all going to be made possible with these AMD chipsets. So when you're building, so if you're an OEM developer, or if you're Asus ROG or Dell developer making an Xbox console, quote unquote, or Xbox hardware, which is basically PC hardware with these particular chipsets, you got to have that chipset in there. You got to have it in there to get that Microsoft, you know what I'm saying? Because let's just say if you do something with NVIDIA, that is not going to be compatible with this new Xbox experience all the way through. It's AMD that's going to, that is developing something that's going to be compatible with the experience. So here's the thing. When you think of Xbox, it's no longer a device, which a lot of people have gotten used to that. What's going to determine Xbox is if where the experience is being delivered from, whether it's native or cloud, wherever the experience is being delivered from, what type of chipset is in that hardware. So if you're playing a game natively, that native device has to have the Xbox chipset. Now it gets trickier if it's in the cloud, I would presume, because then that's why they ran the campaign. This is an Xbox, that's an Xbox. If your device or your hardware can play xCloud, it will be considered an Xbox because it's an endpoint, because the thing delivering that cloud instance has the chip, is going to have this chipset in it. So that's why Microsoft is calling everything an Xbox. I know it was confusing back then. It still is confusing, but this is what's supposed to bring it all the way home. The fact that the thing that's going to stabilize, okay, you're dealing with an Xbox instance, is the device where the instance is coming from. Does it have the Xbox AMD chipset in it? So again, if you're playing natively and the device has that AMD chipset in it, or you're playing through the cloud, which of course will have the AMD chipset, you are playing on a quote unquote Xbox in theory, right? So that's how this thing is being worked. Now, besides how Xbox wants you to look at whatever they're doing, the bigger question is, why are they doing it like this? Well, they're doing it like this because Xbox has a crap load of users that are console users. And remember, Phil Spencer always said that we have a solution that we think that console gamers will respect. Console, which means console gamers are not going to get their traditional console experience, and there may be some trade-offs, but they feel like that the total offering will be plentiful enough for the traditional console gamer that they will still respect it, not be too off of, and will stay around. That's why you use the word respect. Like for instance, what if Herman Holster and Nishino came out there and said, yeah, the PlayStation 6 we feel like is going to have components in it that we feel like current PlayStation 5 gamers will respect. Huh? Respect? Why would I not be enamored or in love with it? It's because there are trade-offs in this new experience that maybe I would rather do without, but I will digest because the overall thing is okay to me. All right. So let's talk about that. And let's talk about that by going here. I want you to look at my tweet, and we're going to go through my tweet and examine some things. So the next Xbox discussion is a confusing one, I say. That appears deliberate from Xbox to keep its more hardcore fan base engaged for evangelist marketing. I get it. They simply can't appear to be foregoing these consumers because they make up most of their revenue via console. The revenue from console Game Pass tiers, third-party sales, and microtransactions are too much to ignore. However, Xbox, just them, can't grow in the console market. This is their best solution, a conversion to the PC ecosystem that mimics a console. To gauge success here, and this is the point that we're going to get into, there's questions that need to be asked. Number one, why would a traditional console gamer convert when they have to buy way more expensive hardware versus a subsidized console for desired performance? We will talk about that. I will explain that. Two, why would gamers interested in PlayStation abandon, and I meant to put /pick, a more expensive option with no guarantee of PlayStation library date and date, if at all? I'll get into that a little bit more. And lastly, is Xbox leadership competent enough to defeat Steam's OS and marketplace when they couldn't defeat PlayStation, when Steam has an even bigger stranglehold on PC gaming than Sony does on consoles regarding loyalty? Stay tuned as I address this in a new vid. Okay. And I point people to the channel, but I'll put the link to the vid in this thread. All right. So those are the things that we got to ask before we start talking about, oh, this is exciting. Again, we have a track record that we cannot deny. We have some serious challenges up ahead, but we got a track record we cannot deny, even though Xbox has a war chest that could very well aid them tremendously against these challenges. However, these challenges are compounded even more by the fact that Microsoft went up against PlayStation and had a humongous war chest and failed. They spent $100 billion in acquisitions and could not compete against PlayStation and had to lean on PlayStation in order to survive. If, let's just say, for instance, if PlayStation says, no, we don't want your games on our platform, Xbox would be shutting down right now. They would not be able to sustain themselves and stick around, even with this turnaround that they're experiencing. Why? Because they've raised the price of their consoles. Game Pass is going up, even though Game Pass is cool. In order to access Game Pass, you got to buy the console, which again, going up. I mean, you can get on PC and do it, but the money that you need to spend to get a PC powerful enough to play the games that you would be able to play it in the way that you can on the console, you're going to spend you're going to spend more money that you would be on the console. So what's the point, right? Why spend more money on something when you already felt like the console was overpriced? So the console's overpriced, so I'm going to spend even more money to play it on PC. Right? We're talking about the average Xbox consumer, which I think after it was apparent that Xbox waved the white flag and realized they couldn't compete, you had more and more people convert over to PlayStation anyway, even before it was official. I mean, the writing was on the wall. I think after Starfield's failure post its 30-day launch, and people realized, damn, this leadership really doesn't know what to do to be successful in this arena. People just started converting, and you see that in the fact that that PlayStation sold more consoles than it ever did at 21 million, I believe it was. They sold more consoles than they ever did in the following year after Starfield's failure. And they're now making record profits, record revenue, all that stuff, because not only because, but due in plentiful part to Xbox refugees who said, I'm not going to spend more money for failure. I don't want to deal with PC gaming. I'll just go to PlayStation. My Xbox games are coming over there anyway. It was great having Game Pass to access these games, but I'm a traditional gamer. I don't mind buying games that I want to play. I just won't have the ability to just flip through a Rolodex of games that might interest me or whatever. I'll just stick to investing in the games that I want to play from Xbox, and I'll play everything else that's on PlayStation that everybody's been jumping out of their shoes and socks about, that I've missed because I had an Xbox. So that's the thing. The thing is that there's already been a serious exodus from Xbox. All right. So let's talk about the first question. The first question is, why would a traditional console gamer convert when they have to buy way more expensive hardware versus subsidized console for desired performance? Look, there are numbers that come from Matt Piscatella. He said it on Kind of Funny. I think when you combine the numbers, and I'm going to condense these numbers to help just give you the most staunch look at the average gamer without taking too long to do so. 48% of gamers buy 0 to 2 games a year. 48% of gamers buy 0 to 2 games a year, meaning they're either just playing free-to-play stuff or they'll buy a couple games a year. Your Maddens, your FIFAs, or whatever. You have another, I think, 16% that buys 6 or more games a year. You see the difference there. 16% buy 6 or more games a year. 48% only buy 0 to 2. And then everybody else is in between. So that if you take that, 48 and 16 is what, 64%? So the other 36% are in between that 48% and that 16%, right? So when you think about it, you have that other 38%, or 30, what did I say? Yeah, that other 30+% buys less than 6 games a year. So when you look at those numbers, it's that 16% that Game Pass targets, because the other 84%, they don't play those many games. And it's not necessarily they don't play those many games because they're not interested in them. I'm sorry. They don't play those many games because they are interested in them. They can't afford them. That's not the case. Because if that was the case, then GameFly would probably be the number one way that people would engage with games. Because why not just get GameFly? Right? If there are games out there that you can't afford to buy, but you still want to play. Like GameFly struggles at times to exist. You know, GameFly's had its struggles. It's doing well enough to continue to exist, but it's not like the premier way to engage with games. Most people just buy their up to 2 games a year. Okay. So Game Pass isn't a vehicle that is going to appeal to the majority group of gamers, that 0 to 2 annual gamers. It's not going to appeal to them. They don't care. They don't care about all this other stuff. But the reason why those people buy those games on PlayStation is why? Because everybody else has a PlayStation. So if I want to play my 0 to 2 games and everybody around me has a PlayStation, I'm more likely to play with the people that I know. So I might as well get a PlayStation 2. I don't know nobody with an Xbox. Who am I playing? Who am I playing duty with? If I got a clan of people that I normally play with, and we've always had PlayStations. That's the importance of draws like exclusives and stuff like that for that 16% that draws them closer to your console, your marketplace, because that makes it more likely that those 0 to 2 annual gamers will come to your console. Even if they don't buy God of War. And every gamer, that 0 to 2 annual gamers a year, they're not buying God of War. They're not buying Horizon. They're not buying a game. Like even Horizon, which has over 30 million copies sold out of the entire series. Most of those are not being bought by that 0 to 2 gamer. Those people are playing Roblox, Fortnite, Call of Duty, Overwatch, whatever. Helldivers. They're not playing God of War and all those other games, but their friends are. The friends that are in their Call of Duty clans are. See how that kills two birds with one stone? Not only does your exclusives draw the people that want to play them, but they draw their friends too. And their friends are of a bigger demographic. That's why exclusives matters. We've been trying to tell people have been ignoring it. This is why exclusives matter. All right. Now, again, to address the question, in order for there to be success, gamers have to look at these new Xboxes with this chipset, and 2 things would have to happen. It has to be at a reasonable price, for one, and for 2, it has to deliver a desired performance. Now, again, the average gamer, the 0 to 2 gamer, they're not looking at 4K 120 or 8K 240 or whatever. They're not looking for that, but they are drawn to graphics. You'll hear them all the time. Oh, do you see the new graphics on Madden? Did you see the new graphics on Call of Duty? So they are expecting graphical prowess to a certain extent to be raised on these new consoles. If that wasn't the case, then new consoles would not need to be made. You could still play Call of Duty on your PlayStation 3. You wouldn't need a PlayStation 5. You wouldn't need an Xbox Series. The same graphics and the same capabilities on those older devices, you'd still have them. You would just probably need more storage, or there would be more accessories to support more storage, but that's a lot less cumbersome and expensive for a PlayStation or an Xbox to invest in, and they wouldn't make new consoles. if those 0 to 2 gamers didn't care about graphics. They care about graphics. A lot of people in this space that talk about this think that those guys don't care about graphics. They do. They want to see improvements. They don't need to see the bleeding cutting edge improvements day one, but they're expecting upgrades. They do look for them. And that's why new consoles are made, to dole out those new performance capabilities. So how is this new Xbox that they are developing, how is that going to provide new capabilities? Because one or two things are going to have to happen, because again, this is not going to be subsidized. When you get a console, when you get a new console, you're getting something that is giving you better capabilities than the last console in a way that it's more expensive than the actual retail price. Prime example is even the PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2 was way more expensive than what it sold for, but PlayStation was willing to sell it at that price because of the DVD player that was inside, because that was their way of, starting their takeover of the living room. We don't have the computerized capabilities of the cell processor in the PlayStation 3 yet, but we can start our infestation of the living room by, putting something out there that's desired by everybody, and that is a DVD player. And they did it at a significant loss, because I think the PlayStation launched at $499, the PlayStation 2 launched at $499, and your average DVD player at that time was $1,000. So they took a significant hit on the PlayStation 2 just to get in your home, knowing that they can make it up in software. And they did. And they crushed it. They murdered it. But you only do that if you subsidize the console. You take a hit. It costs you X amount of dollars to develop it, and you sell it for less than it costs for you to develop it. That's how this works, and you make it up in software, and that creates a sense of urgency for the platform holder, because again, every time you buy a console, I lose money those first few years. So I gotta put out compelling software to draw you to our marketplace so I can get that money back and some. It's like when you have people that invest in oil. I don't know if you guys understand this, but every time an oil rig comes up, that's around $1 billion just to build that rig, that oil. You know what I'm saying? That oil well, it's $1 billion. But that $1 billion is going to lead to $7, $8, $9, $10 billion. They're going to make sevenfold on that. So there's a humongous cost going into building that rig, but you're going to get it back and some. That's the same thing kind of with consoles. So much investment going into it's sold at a loss, but you make up for that loss by selling games. What you do is you use your exclusives as a lure, so people buy the games from your marketplace. All the third-party games that are coming out left and right, they buy them from your marketplace, and you lure them in. You say, hey, look, you want to buy this console to play said game, because guess what? We also got God of War, right? We also got this. We also got that. Everybody's talking about that. So what that does is that will lure gamers, because they're like, oh, I want to play God of War. That game looks awesome. I want to play that. So yeah, let me go buy my Call of Duty there. Or what it does is, because I got lured, but I'm instrumental to your Call of Duty clan, you're buying a PlayStation, because your clan is over on PlayStation, right? So when you're not subsidizing the hardware and you're putting it out for full price, why would I buy it? They weren't buying your hardware when it was being subsidized. So why would I buy it now? Let's take a look at Xbox consoles. There's the Series X right now, the 2 terabyte, which is $729. That went up, what, $100? Let's take a look at these prices that went up. These things went up. The Series X 2 gigabyte Galaxy Special Edition was $600. It went up almost $130. This went up $79. This went up $100. This was $449. It went up $549. Right. This was certain. They got some certified refurbished editions that are closer to the normal price, and this one particularly sold out. But these consoles went up around at least $80, $80 to $130. Now you think that's expensive? What do you think an Xbox quote unquote console, which is basically PC with this AMD chipset in it, the console that's going to have the upgraded capabilities to give you new generation, next gen technology, right? That's going to give you more graphical fidelity, and more performance. What do you think that's going to cost if it's solely PC based, and it's not being subsidized? Like, these are the subsidized versions of the consoles. These went up because to account for possible tariffs. That's why these went up. These went up to go up for possible tariffs, and I believe these went up as well because they're not going to take a loss on them at all. I think they also accounted in a price the cost to manufacture it all together. They're not taking a hit on their console at all anymore, and that's why these prices are high. What are you going to do if the Xbox Series X equivalent for next gen is $850 or even $800? What are you going to do? Are you then out of the market? Are you out of the market when the next gen Xbox quote unquote console is $800? Oops. Are you out of the market? You likely are. If you're a traditional console gamer, you're out of the market. Hold on one second. I knocked my keyboard on the floor. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. All right. So yeah, you're out of the market. You're no longer in the market for an Xbox. Okay? So it is what it is. You're not paying $800 for that. What are you going to do? You're going to get a PlayStation. Because if the Asus ROG handheld rumored prices or anything or any type of indication, the more expensive handheld is going to be $1,000. And we know that because of the technology being more condensed in the handheld and all this stuff, they run a little bit more expensive than the consoles do. So again, handhelds run a little bit more expensive, and they are not taking a loss on their hardware anymore. Xbox is not taking losses on hardware anymore. So if the handheld is going to run around 1,000, the Asus ROG Ally, you best believe that the console is going to be around 700, 800 bucks, maybe even more, likely even more. Because these aren't like custom parts that they're trying to get manufactured or whatever. No, they're just going to go put together like a condensed form factor PC, a mini form factor PC, and whatever it costs them to put it together, that's what they're charging you. That's what they're going to, and it's going to have these AMD chips in it that can give you backwards compatibility and all this stuff, but that's what they're charging you. They're not subsidizing anything. And it's going to be more expensive than the PlayStation. It simply is. Now, are there going to be cheaper alternatives? There might be from other manufacturers. But again, if Xbox is not taking a loss, the other manufacturers are not taking a loss, because the only reason why you would take a loss on hardware is if you could make it up in software. If I'm Dell, I don't get a cut of Xbox's software sales. I make my money off of selling the hardware. So you might have a situation where, let's say what Xbox does is maybe the next Xbox can't compete graphically and fidelity wise, this new Xbox that they're making, first party hardware that they're making, maybe it can't compete fidelity wise with the PS6, but you know, they sell it to you for $600-700, right? Say they sell it to you for, so let's say it's $600, and what it does is it gives you 1440p, you know, it's a 1440p 60 machine, right? That can give you, you know, high medium settings. Okay, and they sell it to you for $600. Okay, now let's just say that's where that comes in at. But let's just say Dell makes their OEM device that is straight up 4K 60, 4K 120, and it does compete with the capabilities of the PlayStation 6. And they partner with Xbox to get licensing in order to put out the 4K 120 or 8K 120, 4K 240 version of the next gen Xbox, right? Let's just say they do that. Guess how much you think that's going to cost? That's going to be $1,300, $1,400, $1,500. Because Dell is not going to sell that at a loss. They don't have the ability to to benefit from Xbox software sales. So it's going to be full price. Like you would, whatever the capabilities of a Dell PC with those specs, if it's going to compete with the PlayStation, that's what you're paying. It might be and it might even be a tad more expensive because they got to pay for the license. Okay? So it might, have an extra $40, $50 on a straight PC, something that's comparable at Dell. It might be an extra $40, $50 more expensive, but they got to pay for the license. But what their selling point will be, this is an Xbox certified device because it's going to have that chipset in it. I imagine what's going to happen. Okay, here's what I imagine is going to happen. If you love Xbox that much, what you can do is buy one of these pre-built devices that are going to have the AMD Ryzen chipset in it, or you can go buy, if you want to put one together yourself, you can go buy an AMD Ryzen CPU, an AMD or AMD Ryzen component. You can buy the components as well. That's why I think they said they're going beyond. Right? Hold on one second. They are going beyond just creating custom chipsets. For these pre-built units, in these pre-built boxes that are going to be able to sit on your TV, sit with your TV, there will be a combo chipset that is going to, be compatible with this Xbox experience. But I believe you're also going to be able to put a computer together, an AMD PC. You're going to be able to put an AMD PC together and go, and be able to get the Xbox experience as well. But it's not going to be cheap. You might see the future AMD chips, AMD chips and Ryzen chips that are compatible with this new Xbox experience, or AMD CPUs and Ryzen GPU, or AMD GPUs. I mix up the brand name or whatever. You may get that in, it is what it is. But it's going to be expensive. So then that brings us back to fully answer question number one. And what I think, why would these people pay these inflated prices? And not to say that the PlayStation 6 is not going to launch at a more elevated price, but they're not going to be this high. I think the PlayStation 6 could likely launch at, if the computer components are still expensive, if by the time the PlayStation 6 comes out and chips are still hard to come by, because we were told at the beginning of this generation it would be at least 7 years before chip manufacturing will get back on par. If it's still tight, you could see the PlayStation 6 I think launch at $600. I don't think that's hard to fathom, but PlayStation is going to want to stabilize that price, and they're going to eat as much as they can because they know they're going to make it up in software. So they subsidize their hardware because they know they're going to make it up in software. Where Microsoft just basically, they want to be able to sell software. They want to be able to distribute Game Pass, but they don't right now want to lose the people that are giving them the bulk of their money, which are the console gamers that are buying games, buying microtransactions on consoles. They want to be able to put something out console-like that they can quote unquote respect, in hopes that they still convert over to these PC boxes, right? With these AMD chipsets and these PC boxes that are being dressed up, that are mimicking consoles, so they can continue to get their microtransaction money and get their marketplace money, and still, get their Game Pass money as well. Because the alternative is they go to PlayStation. And if they go to PlayStation, sure, if they like Xbox games that much, they'll buy the Xbox games that they like on PlayStation, but they're going to lose money. There's going to be spillage. That, no longer are you getting 100% of either your game sales or your Game Pass sales and 30% on microtransactions. You're just getting 70% off of whatever Xbox games they decide to buy over there, but they're now going to buy all their other games from PlayStation. That hurts your bottom line. So my answer is there's nothing evident that proves that Xbox would be successful at that, because they got to overcome the pricing situation, which is going to be hard. It's going to be a hard sell. Oh, you're going to get access to Steam games. I mean, literally, you can go and buy a computer right now. Nothing's going to take your Xbox away. Like, if backwards compatibility was that big of a deal, nothing's going to take your Xbox away. It's not like you can go into stores and trade in your Xbox for PC parts. You could sell your Xbox, but you're going to get pennies on a dollar for it. So nothing's holding you back from keeping your Xbox for your old Xbox games and then just buying a PC. The fact of the matter is that console gamers don't want to buy a PC. They don't want a PC game, they want a console game. So if having access to Steam was that alluring, they would have went and bought a PC a while ago. They would have bought a pre-built PC a long time ago. Why didn't they do that? Because they don't care about Steam. They don't care. They don't care. Okay. So the pricing alone is going to be an issue. And that's going to be the roadblock to where I don't think they can be successful there. The next question is, why would a traditional console gamer convert when they have to buy? Why would gamers interested in PlayStation abandon or pick a more expensive option with no guarantee of PlayStation library day and date at all? This part of the conversation I had with my good friend tickled me because they said to me, you don't even need a PlayStation. Why don't I need a PlayStation? I already have a 4070 Super Rig. If I wanted to sit and wait potentially for PlayStation games to come later, maybe I could do that right now. What is going to draw me from a PlayStation? I'm going to get a less optimized PlayStation game, right? Because we see what these PC ports look like on PlayStation. They're trash. So I'm going to get a less optimized PC port at a later date. Like, no, that's not what. No, when Death Stranding 2 comes out, I want to be able to play it within the release window. I don't want a worse off PC port, right? Because I know it's going to be optimized for PlayStation. When Ghost of Yotei comes out, I want to get I don't want to wait possibly 2 years, maybe even more, for it to come. You understand what I'm saying? That's not the PlayStation experience. That's just a PlayStation game. I want it decked out on my DualSense, which I feel like is the best controller out here right now. I want to be able to play it day and date, and I want it optimized the best way that it could be. That's why I got a PlayStation 5 Pro. I'd rather spend that $700 on a Pro on another console than sit back and wait for it to come. Gamers that buy these games don't wait for them to come. That's what PC gamers do. They wait for them to come to PC. I'm not doing that. I want the game to come day and date to my console. Okay? So why would I pay more, right? Why would I pay more to wait for the games that I want to play? That doesn't make sense. I would pay more and wait longer. Like the gamers that buy these games, they're not doing that, or they would be doing it now. PlayStation is selling more. If PlayStation games 18 months or longer, or 15 months or longer in the case of Spider-Man, if PlayStation games coming to PC 15 months or longer were that big of a deal to PlayStation gamers, they wouldn't be breaking records in console sales, in revenue, and in profits. That's why I laughed. I said to my friend, I said, you're trolling. You got to be trolling me now. This is a lot of Xbox hopium. I don't need a PlayStation. And let's take me out of the equation. The average PlayStation gamer, or even a sector of the PlayStation, they're not going to look at this and it be an appealing situation. I got to pay more to wait longer and get a worser version. No, to me, that's silly. And to see all these people run amok with this theory on the internet just proves to you how silly the internet is. It's a lot of hopium and copium out there. It's crazy. Last but not least, is Xbox leadership competent enough to defeat Steam's OS in marketplace when they couldn't defeat PlayStation? I think that this is the nail in the coffin. Look, PlayStation is a juggernaut, and they are the biggest marketplace out there for traditional gaming. They make more money off of games than Steam, than Nintendo, right? Nintendo even. The PlayStation marketplace is the Don Juan of traditional gaming, right? With that being said, again, they still got to compete to a degree as far as marketplaces are concerned against Nintendo. Now, Nintendo's marketplace is full of, is mainly first party games, right? And PlayStation isn't competing with Nintendo to sell Nintendo games, right? Nintendo's selling Nintendo games, PlayStation is selling everything else. You know what I'm saying? So they're not really in competition, but they are to a certain degree because they are marketplaces. But that stranglehold in selling everything else that PlayStation has pales in comparison to the stranglehold that Steam has on PC gaming. Look, Steam not only has a stranglehold as far as loyalty is concerned, but they have a stranglehold as far as the deals are concerned. If you want to make it in PC gaming, your game needs to be on Steam. And if it's on Steam, there are all these contingencies that you got to agree with. You can't put a game on sale elsewhere and not put it on sale here. Just so many crazy things that you got to do to get on Steam, that you got to agree to get on Steam. How is Microsoft going to compete with that? Are they going to try to sue Steam? Now, I wouldn't put it past them trying to sue Valve out of these deals. But I don't know how successful they're going to be, because even if they are successful in court, right, their marketplace is not going to be able to compete with what Steam got going. Just isn't. They just don't have the leadership and the ingenuity at Xbox to make that happen. They just don't. I'm sorry. If they didn't have the ingenuity and the expertise and the artistry needed and to just compete with PlayStation, how do you think they're going to compete with Steam that has built? PC gaming and Steam are synonymous. I mean, there's Steam is on a whole nother level, and then there's everybody else. Like, I mean, you can sell game. You can be like GOG and Epic. Like Epic is bleeding cash. But you can be like GOG and be like, look, we are DRM free. You can have your own little niche and see some success out of it. But Xbox isn't investing to be niche. They're putting a lot of money into this effort. And they're going to have to invest in this and show a level of leadership that they've never shown before. And they didn't show it, the level of leadership and ingenuity and success that they're going to need to show quadruples what is needed to compete against PlayStation. And they couldn't do it against PlayStation. This is where track records matter. And Xbox's track record is horrible. So again, that's like me saying, okay, I can't beat my kid's sister in racing, but I'm sure as hell going to beat Usain Bolt. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't beat my kid's sister in racing, but I'm going to go against Usain Bolt and beat him. Or I'm going to beat Sha'Carri Richardson. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think people are not quantifying enough the challenge that Xbox has going against Steam. Going against Steam is way more challenging. Going against Steam on PC is way more challenging than going against PlayStation in consoles. PlayStation dominates the console marketplace, but Steam actually saved PC gaming and made it something respectable when it was considered dead. Like, the amount of loyalty that's with Steam because of that is decades and decades old. And you can't just come in and litigate yourself above that. There are so many things that they do on Steam that Steam allows that Microsoft will never do. And we've seen that just in their latest practices under Satya Nadella when it comes to the console. They're the first ones that went to $80 on games. They are not going to be able to compete with Valve. Valve is going to obliterate them. Again, it's like me saying, I can't beat my kid's sister. She's pretty good in track and field, and I couldn't even beat my kid's sister in racing. So now I'm going to go up against Sha'Carri Richardson. I think we're underestimating the challenge that Xbox has trying to compete with Steam in the PC realm and with this OS. That is absurd. So again, those are my thoughts on all this. Xbox, I don't think is going. They're not going to. Look, will they see some success here? Sure. And when I say see some success, will they be able to maintain some of their faithful while selling a lot of games in the interim? Yes, I do think that they'll be able to do well enough to where they might continue to make more money than Steam, because Steam is only making $11-12 billion. But here's the problem. The ecosystem part, where they want people to, pretty much utilize the Windows marketplaces and use the Windows OSs versus the Steam OSs. That part is going to fail. And, okay, Microsoft can end up making 16 billion to Steam's 12 billion, right? But that 16 billion is going to be 4 billion less than the 20 billion they just recorded, this past fiscal year. And they recorded that 20 billion by selling games, as a publisher and maintaining enough of their ecosystem, pretty much console gamers, to keep getting those microtransactions, those game store numbers from them. Once they convert to this and those gamers are turned off and they go to PlayStation, that 20 billion will easily drop to like 16, maybe 17 billion. They're going to lose like 3 billion in revenue. And they'll be doing more than Steam, but that loss in money is not going to be worth it for them. Yes, even 17 billion will not be worth it for them, considering that on top of where they're at, they're going backwards in the market, which is not going to be looked at the market favorably at all. But more importantly, they just bought $100 billion worth of acquisitions in the last few years. and they got to make up for that. Oh my God. My God, my God, my God. Okay. So with that said, it's gonna be a tough hill to climb, tough pill to swallow. This is more of a daunting task for Xbox, in my opinion, than going against PlayStation. But Microsoft feels like they have a leg up in this competition because Windows is PC based and Microsoft is a PC company. Yeah, but no. I think that's being underscored. Now, if they're successful, then hey, I will tip my hats to them. And success means that they outperform Steam and they keep growing in revenue. They keep going beyond that 20 billion even after converting their players. They successfully convert players from console to PC. They keep a good enough margin of those and continue to sell games on PlayStation and continue to go from 20 billion to 21 billion, so forth, keep going up and up and up and up and up. Then I'll tip my hat off to them. But I don't think it's going to happen. This is more challenging than them going against PlayStation. All right. But that's it. That's it from your boy. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you guys appreciate this. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. And until next time, you all have a wonderful, wonderful gaming day. And again, don't forget, we are doing a Days Gone raffle. Death Stranding 2 raffle on the 24th. And a lucky winner will get a copy of Death Stranding 2 courtesy of Geek to Sneak. But with that said, appreciate all y'all. Till next time, have a wonderful gaming day. Peace.